Is It Tomorrow? I have described it in some of the write-ups that I'm sharing about the music as a whimsical song, but it has some truth behind it too.
It's an intense whimsical song.
So that's the voice of Scott Greeson, who is here in the studio with me as we are recording, and Michael Kelsey, my co-writer on the song, is here, and he's the recording engineer and the producer of the album Another Universe. And now I'm going to take a quick break, play the intro about this podcast, and I'm going to give you a homework assignment with our conversation about Is It Tomorrow? I know you're saying, what? A homework assignment? Yes, you need a homework assignment, don't you? You love being a lifelong learner. I know you do, or you wouldn't be here listening to a podcast. It's one of my favorite ways to learn. Hey, as musicians, you can help all of us out every single time you listen to one of our songs in the streaming services. So I'm talking about Spotify, Pandora, Deezer, iHeart, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon Music, YouTube, any of those places where you like to listen to music. You are helping those of us who are creators of music every time you listen. But here's your homework assignment. I would like to ask you to specifically listen to this song, Is It Tomorrow? You might even pause this episode of the podcast. Go take a listen and take an action after you have listened to the song. So what I mean by that is add it to a playlist that you have in whichever music app you like to listen to music, or create a playlist if you haven't ever done that. When you create your playlist, you can share those out really easily with the world. So for instance, you could put a playlist out in your Twitter feed or on your Facebook page, wherever you like to be active in social media, or you could email it to a friend or send it in a text message. And I'm sure you know there are other actions that you can take beyond adding the song to a playlist. Any way that you share it is helpful. But when you do things that are within the app itself, so collecting the song, clicking the like or the heart button, adding a comment if you are watching or listening to the song in YouTube, putting a comment in the comments thread under that particular video, all of those types of actions do what we call warm up the algorithm. It's telling the algorithm running those platforms that, hey, this person likes that song and they like it enough that they want to share it. Scott, Michael, and I represent all singer-songwriters out there and all creators of music when we say thank you for listening in those apps and for taking those actions. So there's your homework assignment. Listen to Is It Tomorrow? And you know what? While you're at it, why don't you look up songs by Scott Greeson or songs by Michael Kelsey and listen to one or two of those as well. We sure appreciate it, and we love that you are here listening to this episode of the podcast. So here we go with the conversation that you signed on to this episode to hear. This is about Is It Tomorrow? I am Vickie Maris, your host, and my co-hosts, Michael Kelsey and Scott Greeson, are going to join me in just a moment for that conversation. So let's get ready to head to the main content of this episode of the making of the album Another Universe. So I woke up early in the morning saying out loud, is it tomorrow or is it still tonight? And there might have been a little disagreement in our household the evening before, and I had not been sleeping very well. And as I woke up, I was, I don't know, it was like 3 a.m. or something, and I was just getting out of bed. I was frustrated. But as I was hearing what I had just said, I'm like, man, I think that could be a song lyric.
It's funny because a lot of times we both recognize hooks, song hooks that the other one says.
Yes.
And it may not be so obvious to the person who said it at the time they said it. But in this case,
did you recognize it as a song
I
lyric?
recognized it, and you recognized it immediately. So we both recognized it at the same time as something that had to be reckoned with.
So I headed downstairs and started songwriting, and Scott came downstairs later and tried to help me with the songwriting, but I wouldn't let him in the room.
I was trying to interject, and she made it very clear. This is my song, and I don't want your opinion. But Vickie, I have a great idea for your bridge. I think this is a great idea. It may be, but it's not going to make it in this song.
I pretty much said that.
And to put things in perspective, Vickie and I normally talk through everything. We don't hold anything back.
We don't.
But we're very respectful of each other, and that's what makes our relationship special and allows us to continue having a great marriage. But I'll never forget, because we're very collaborative and everything, and she'll bounce ideas off me.
And we do co-write on other songs.
Exactly, and I bounce ideas off her. But that day was not the day of collaboration. It was the day of, I'm doing my song, and you better clear out of the front room.
So I don't know, Michael, Kelsey, perhaps you served as therapist in that role. Yeah. I don't know.
I guess I didn't know everything that went into it. Gee.
Yeah, I didn't tell. I don't think I told you any of that when I brought the song in. One thing I remember is you got off your chair from the console and you were kind of dancing around the studio playing an imaginary drum kit when I sang the scratch vocals.
Was I?
Yes.
Uh-oh. Was I drinking wine at that time?
I don't know. You might have been. That encouraged me, though. I'm like, oh, I finally wrote an up-tempo song that can get him out of his seat.
It is a fun song. Got a great groove and a great idea behind it. And so kudos. Like, once again, when you're singing it, I'm like, yep, there we go. That's a song. That's great.
The other story to this song is after you and Michael did your thing. I don't want to preempt what you were going to say about this tune, though, because I thought it very special, the story behind. When I first heard it, after you guys had cut it, I thought, oh my gosh, that sounds like Shania Twain. And the way you guys delivered it, I know you worked your tail off on the vocals. And you didn't purposefully try to make it sound like anything. You just made it Vickie's song. But
No, yes. We were just making it what it needed to be for that song. Michael helped me with, that's one of the songs where you kind of cut apart pieces, and I think maybe you felt like I had already told the story with the first set of verses, and so he did some fun things at the end of the song. But I remember when I was recording the keeper vocals on that song, you were asking me, like, come on, you've got more sass. I need more sass on that line. So I was hearing things like that because it was definitely pushing me out of a style. We jokingly call it my choir girl style, but it was pushing me to a new place vocally.
It's a sassy song. So it's like, if you could approach it so seriously, come on, we're not buying that. And it's like, so then the more you play with it, and then you just channel that wherever it came from to begin with, and then but that playfulness is what sets it off.
Yes.
That's great.
And it makes me think of just like a little bit of songwriting advice to share is, when you're feeling a lot of emotion about something, write it down, write the song. Because I feel like some of the sass you were talking about, Michael, came because I got up in the middle of the night and started writing that song when I was still feeling some of that frustration.
I will say intensity.
Intensity, yes. So that's happened for me with several of the songs on the album, where I've been able to write them in the moment when the ideas were coming to me, and when the emotion of whatever kind of emotion that particular song was causing to well up in me.
Yep. And the more you describe it, it starts to sound like it's a song that's very serious about this frustration, when really, in the end, it's a playful song that everybody can go like, oh yeah, that's what we do. We get frustrated at one another in a humorous way, kind of looking in on it and and then gives you that feeling, a reminder, like, don't take things too seriously.
Yes, that's
and
exactly.
It's like, so it's playful in a frustration in a playful way.
Yes, it's definitely that.
It's well put, Mike.
And Scott, what was the story that you were going to share?
Well, after Vickie and Michael worked their magic in Michael's studio, when I was hearing the song as a co-producer, I was thinking, man, I'm hearing some B3 in this thing, and why don't we just see if our friend
B3 is an organ for everybody out there.
Yeah.
That's not an organ player.
Yeah, there you go.
But go ahead.
Thank
Continue.
you. Thank you. Good point. So it's a very unique organ sound, and so we reached out to our friend Matt Coles in Nashville, and he arranged for a session player,
Mike Rojas,
to come in, and so we went. We didn't have to go to Nashville. We just could have sent the sessions down there digitally and had them done. But we did that. But we also decided, let's make the trip down, and he played on a couple other tunes as well as this one. But what was really interesting is as we finished up recording,
it was during Matt was giving us a tour of the studio,
and we'd heard several people say that had heard the song without the organ in it, that, wow, that really sounds like a Shania Twain tune. And ironically, after the B3 was cut, we find out, we're taking a tour of the studio, we find out that is the exact same studio and control room that Shania Twain had worked in cut.
With Mutt Lange.
With Mutt Lange.
Yeah, they had rented the space from what Matt shared with us.
To do her breakout album, and it was just very ironic to me that the tone, the inflection, the energy was there, and that that studio space yet again had an influential part, and a really cool song that was this time sang by the amazing star Miss Vickie Maris. And
it felt like you're silly. It felt like one of those synchronicities again.
And we've had multiple
Yeah.
episodes of that while we've been doing this, and
That was cool.
It's made it very special.
And it's fun to watch people smile when we play that
React.
one live.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
laugh. Yeah.
Well, laugh, smile, and the thing that gets me, and Michael alluded to it, healthy relationships, you do have differences, and you're going to resolve them. You're going to talk through them. But when I have people tell us, oh, man, I can relate to that one, and I've heard that more than probably in any other song, they say, boy, I can relate to that one. Yeah.
Yes.
Old Scott was in the doghouse on that morning, and Miss Vickie wasn't about to let him be a co-writer on that bad boy because she had her ideas and she didn't need any inflection. He had already inspired her enough in different ways.
You had provided the inspiration. I'm pretty forgiving, but I was definitely not going to involve you in the writing of that song any further.
Yeah. Learned a lesson. Lesson learned.
Thank you for hanging out with us as we talked about the song Is It Tomorrow on the album Another Universe. It's a fun one. You're going to enjoy taking a listen.
Check it out.
Editing this episode of the show has put a smile on my face. I hope that it has also done the same for you as a listener. It was fun for me to reflect back on the evening when we recorded this episode in the studio and all the fun we had talking about the creation of this song, Is It Tomorrow? When you listen to the song, I look forward to hearing one of your takeaways from the lyrics, from what you have now learned about what went into the creation of it, or maybe it's a fun takeaway from this episode of the podcast. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing the show with your friends and followers. And let's get back together soon in the next episode of the show. My name is Vickie Maris. Along with Michael Kelsey and Scott Greeson, we want to thank you for listening to this episode of Making of the Album, Another Universe.